Sunday, everyone. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. My good friend, long time friend.
Long time.
40 plus years,
Yeah,
I
at
would
least.
say. Doug Jones needs no introduction, former United States Senator, currently trying to save our country. So, Doug, since your change of position in the recent election, what have you been doing with your time and yourself?
I tell you, I have been extremely busy. It's been a really busy time after the kind of the run up after the election in 2020, but also, there for a little bit I was thinking that there might be a possibility to get with the administration. That didn't kind of work out. So, I kind of set my sights on doing a lot of different things. So I'm counsel at a law firm, Arent Fox Schiff, doing a lot of government relations, not as much litigation as I used to do anymore, not being a lobbyist, but a lot of governmental strategy. We've got a huge firm and it's full service, anything that people might want. I'm also affiliated, I'm a distinguished senior fellow, which I know that's kind of an oxymoron for you knowing me, as long as you have a distinguished senior fellow. Senior you can appreciate.
Like I say, I'm not retired, I'm just tired.
I understand. I'm there at the Center for American Progress. I've got a political action committee that we're doing things all over the country, a C3 and a C4 organization. We're doing some research in the South, and I've had some other interesting things going on. I was a fellow at Georgetown Institute of Politics. I was a visiting professor at Boston College Law School, and this fall I'm going to be under the Pritzker Fellowships at the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago. So it's just nonstop, but a lot of fun. I'm having a great time.
And obviously working closely with the Democratic Party.
Working closely with the Democratic Party. I took a 2-month leave of absence for everything to work with the White House. Got a call about helping be what they call the Sherpa, the guide for Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, which was just an amazing experience to be there. And I am looking so forward to being in the audience on the first day, the opening day of court on October 3rd. She's been sworn in. She's going to have a big ceremony, kind of a more public, formal ceremony on the last week of September, and then opening court day is the first Monday in October. And that's both historic and quite frankly, it'll be an emotional day.
I want to talk about some of the things that have just recently happened. Of course, we're taping a few weeks ahead of when this is airing, but just this week, there was a tremendous turnabout in a very conservative state, Kansas,
right,
regarding what seems to be a hot topic across the country, and that is the abortion rights and the Supreme Court's decision deciding that wasn't a constitutional right anymore.
Right.
So how does that impact what you see for the midterm elections going forward?
I think it's a big bellwether, is truly an indicator there. There were two things about that election that were important. One was the win and the size of the win over that. And the second thing I think that was important too is the number of people who registered, first-time voters who registered to come out to vote on that issue. They had like 1,000% increase in what they normally see. Most of the people that cast votes were women, overwhelmingly, like 58% in Kansas. And I think that that's a really interesting bellwether going forward to the midterms, because while some people are focused on the economy is actually, inflation is going to be in check a little bit. Gas prices, if you've gone to the pump lately, have come down significantly over the last 45 or 60 days. But I think that people have all of a sudden woken up to the fact that this activist Supreme Court, and that's the only way you can describe these folks now, is an activist Supreme Court, something that we generally loathe in Alabama and in conservative states. This is an activist Supreme Court, and the only real way to counter that is through ballot initiatives and people voting. And I think folks are beginning to see that. And I think that right now the tide is turning a little bit. Democrats have a headwind historically. People blame the president for a lot of things, but if you look at everything that's going on, Kansas is just part of that. The other wins that the administration and Democrats in Congress have had are huge. But make no mistake, people are very concerned, even in Alabama, about overturning a decision, taking away a constitutional right that had been on the books for 50 plus years, or right at 50 years. And now people are trying to figure out what to do next. And it is going to create a lot of chaos among the 50 states.
What I'm wondering about what happened in Kansas is that a contagious thing? Will it spill over to, because it's a conservative state?
It is, and I absolutely think it is. What I'm seeing around the country when I travel, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing on both social media and different places, is that people are concerned. They don't want to have the Supreme Court of the United States interfere like they just did. And they are seeing, Tommy, it's really interesting because people are talking, you hear these statistics all the time, where people are saying they don't like the direction that the country's going. And most people think that that is just simply about the Biden presidency or something along those lines. It is, in fact, about the fact that they're seeing an activist Supreme Court taking away rights. They're seeing Republicans in the Congress of the United States obstructing most things. And they're seeing these legislatures in states like Alabama and Georgia subverting elections, suppressing votes, and doing all of those things to literally get into your bedroom, be government control. That's not the Republican Party of old, but that's what it is today. You can only see it with DeSantis in Florida. It's a government control party at this point, and that is a real concern for people.
Well, I want to talk about what I would characterize as the potential for the demise of our democracy when we come back from break.
Got it.
So don't go away.
All right.
Neither should you. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. So right before break, I used the expression, the demise of our democracy. Some have compared what's going on now in our country as being much more subversive to our founding fathers' intent than, say, something like the protest in the 60s about the Vietnam War.
That's correct.
When I see things about the protest in the 60s, and I see what's going on today, I mean, it looks like we're still dealing with similar issues.
Right.
But I am concerned about what we were told, the famous words, I think it was Ben Franklin, I've given you a republic, now let's see if you can keep it.
Yeah, no, look, I think you're spot on. There's a real danger that we've got right now, and I see it across the country. I see it here in Alabama. On one level, on just a practical level, with people that we know, people that are in our communities, we have gotten so partisan. We've moved from from partisanship to a culture of contempt to a culture of hate. It's all good versus evil, and it doesn't matter which side you're on. The other side is evil, your side is good, and that is not healthy for democracy. And from the right, and we have to acknowledge that there are things on the left that I don't like, that are problems. But from the right, that is the biggest threat to democracy right now that we see growing, from threats to the right. The people I wish would pay more attention to the January 6th committee, because those are Republican witnesses telling about how close we came to losing this democracy, how close we came to a violent overthrow. And it truly was an overthrow of the peaceful transition of power in our constitutional process on January 6th, and it was stoked by the former President of the United States. And there is no question about that. What concerns me now is we're in a position where truth should matter more to people than politics, and I don't think it does. Politics has gotten so infected right now with almost a cancer-like disease that the truth is taking second fiddle. Yeah. And people stay in their silos. And if people would just come back together, like when we were growing up, we had Walter Cronkite,
right,
Huntley and Brinkley.
Yep.
There was one set of facts, and you can make your judgments on those set of facts. And that's where you had the political disagreements. Today, there's just multitudes of facts out there that are not really facts. And we've got to come together because we are in serious trouble. There's no question about it. And we've got to start demanding more of our candidates and our elected officials to tell us the truth and to understand where we're coming from.
Well, from my perspective, what I hope I see is within the Republican Party, there are different factions. Not all of them line up, although it seems to be popular to line up with the former president.
Yeah.
So
I think the bigger question right now is that, yes, there are those factions, but I think the faction that is trying to challenge the former president is not gaining a lot of traction right now. You only have to look at what happened in Alabama. Here we have a former president who clearly had issues, a supreme dereliction of his duties to the nation on January 6th and afterwards, but yet every candidate from our governor and Senate candidates were all embracing him, seeking his endorsement, all trying to be the biggest Trump supporters of all, and that's ultimately who won those races. That's happening around the country. You see the type of people that the Republicans are nominating in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, and all over. Election deniers, people that do not believe the election was valid, not believing the facts, not believing the truth. So there is a faction out there that's pushing back, but they're also being pretty silent. Even Mike Pence, who's pushing back and challenging Trump on candidates, is not condemning the actions that the president had leading up to and on January 6th and beyond. And until you start getting that condemnation and a recognition that it was a supreme dereliction of duty, you're not going to see that faction of the Republican Party win out.
well, I just saw recently that some grand jury subpoenas had gone out to some of the people that had testified at the congressional hearings.
Yeah.
So that would indicate to me that there's an ongoing grand jury investigation.
Yeah. We've dealt with Justice Department. I've been inside it on 2 different occasions. And I've said for months and months now that this was ongoing. What we've seen recently is not new developments. It's just a confirmation of what is happening out there. And I think the Attorney General, they're going to do this on their own time. It's a very, very serious investigation that's probably the most consequential that the department's ever done.
And what lies underneath all of that are the citizens that support what happened on that day.
Yeah.
And there's many of them. There are many of them.
They are, and you know what? And there's a lot of people that probably we know, folks that are. One of the issues that I wish we could overcome right now is if we could get people to get out of their silos, quit using their phones so much for their news feeds, and try to get to look at opposing views. Because if you're told over and over and over and you never hear any other information that the election was stolen, even though there's no evidence to that, that becomes your truth. And unfortunately, it's not the truth. Well, fortunately, it's not the truth. It was not stolen. But people don't. People tend to stay in those silos, and they truly believe things that are just misinformation, facts. They don't understand that people are making that information. They're telling them those things for their own political purposes, and they're being used. That's just the best way to say it. They are being used as pawns, and if we can start getting that common set of facts, I think we can overcome this. But it is very difficult to do in this social media age that we got and news at our fingertips.
Reminds me of an old expression I was given as a young lawyer, a lie's as good as the truth as long as somebody believes it.
Absolutely.
And that's where we are right now.
That's exactly where we are.
We're going to take a break. This is Our Issues Birmingham, talking with Doug Jones, former United States Senator. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're talking about some pretty sensitive things too. I'm sure many of you out there that don't maybe feel the same way about what we're talking about, and that's okay, because that's what our democracy is about. We don't have to agree.
We don't have to agree, but I would ask folks to please look at something other than just simply Fox News or Breitbart. I don't just look at one set of news. I try to get and look at some facts and look at alternatives out there, and try to broaden your view of the world a little bit. That's the thing that I would implore people to do.
So you're very active in the Democratic Party. As you know, our mayor, Randall Woodfin, just had a great opportunity to interview our vice president. Mm-hmm. He was chosen to do that. I talked to him about it. I believe the Democratic Party has bigger plans for Randall, and I hope Randall is able to deliver on those.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that there are a number of young leaders in Alabama like Randall that are going to have some real opportunities in the state going forward. We've got elections for state party. We have made such strides within the party system so far, and it's setting the table for those younger elected officials and even those that we don't even know exist right now, kids that are in high school and college that'll come forward.
Right. Well, what about you? What's your future hold?
You know, I am...
The statewide election for the Democrat in Alabama is a difficult wagon to pull.
I did it once. I did pull it, yeah. You know, look, I am really active with the law firm and with the Center for American Progress, but I'm also traveling all over the country. I'm going to be doing some work for some Democrats in Alabama. We've got the opportunity to get some state house seats, state senate seats, and I think that that's where, within the state party, that's where we have to build, is at the grassroots level like that. And those are some real opportunities this year. But I'm also going around the country trying to help some former colleagues in the Senate to get reelected. There's a couple of interesting open seats, like in North Carolina and Ohio, with a friend. Tim Ryan is running for the Senate up there. He came down and campaigned for me. John Fetterman in Pennsylvania, Sherry Beasley in North Carolina. We're also working for some of the governors around. So it was interesting after the White House gig that I did that I was seen a lot, I was heard a lot, and so I'm getting a lot of calls from folks, and I'm reaching out to a lot of people saying, what can I do to help? Because I do think that there are opportunities there, and I do think that the future of democracy as we know it is on the line. And if I can help, and I can help do what I can to move this country forward, to bring people together, because that's the message I've got to find, that common ground. This is just not my way or the highway. We've got to find common ground regardless of how you vote. Vote for people that are going to find that and not try to divide us like we see happening by so many on the other side of the aisle.
And I want to say and hope that it's not a racial divide. Do you believe it's a racial divide?
I believe there's an element of that. Certainly, you know, as long as you have a country like we've got out there will always be an element of that. And right now, today, as a matter of fact, we're taping this a little early than when it's going to be shown. You know, this guy, Victor, what's his name, from Hungary, the autocrat, is talking to the Conservative Political Action Committee, the largest conservative PAC in the country. And this guy is a pure racist. And I can't for the life of me understand why CPAC would have this guy. They went to Hungary for their convention last time. And so there is an element, Tom, but I also just think there is a part of this is just simply that we become so partisan. You know, the racial part of this and the cultural part of this, we're still working through. If you really think about this, the United States of America was always destined to be a multiracial, multicultural country. Unlike every other country in the history of the world. Just think about that. We were always destined to be that. And it's not easy. People grow up certain ways, they feel certain ways, they have fears and concerns about their families and their communities. And I think we can work through that. I think I've been trying to work through it, you've been trying to work through it. I think right now the Democratic Party is trying to work through it, and they're getting so much pushback from the other side who play onto those fears. And as long as we can work through it, I think that we'll be all right.
Can we get some of the Republican members of the Senate or Congress to maybe shift away from the former president's mindset?
If they think it's to their political advantage, they will do it. And that's the issue right now. Voters voting, just like they did in Kansas that we talked about earlier. Voters will shift them away. They won't do it on their own. My sense is we don't have a hell of a lot of profiles and courage in the Senate or the Congress anymore. But voters can make them shift. They can make things happen just like they did in Kansas. That's the key to this. It's what I've always said. That is the basis of our democracy. It is the strongest tool that we have for change in this country.
Here's my fear. Those that are in those positions of Congress or Senate are voting how they feel and not necessarily how their constituents feel. Now, how do you get the constituents to move the needle for the person that was elected to sit and really vote for the constituents?
Sometimes it's a great question, and people forget that so many people think that if they just go to the polls and vote, they've done their civic duty. They've got to continue to press for the changes that need to be made. Don't stop with just a vote. And more importantly, also, when it does come election time, make certain demands. Vote the way that you believe. If you want people to work with the other side, vote that way. Don't accept that for an answer. And I'll tell you another problem that we don't really have time to talk about. We could do a whole show on, and that is the gerrymandering problem in this country. Yeah. Because right now, I still believe that's the biggest problem in this country. It's a problem in the state when you've got a gerrymandered legislature that really is only answerable to a small percentage of voters in their district. Then they don't have to reach out. They don't have to do things for the majority. And, Democrats in Alabama get roughly 40% of the vote every time, but yet we've got only 30% of the state legislature. And that's concentrated on around the Black Belt and places in Birmingham. That's just not right. You have to be competitive, you have to get that. But gerrymandering is a huge problem across this country. And it's a problem, by the way, for Democrats too, because we've got gerrymandered congressional districts that produce these, folks on the left that don't represent the Democratic Party. People like AOC and others who are important voices for sure, but they don't represent the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
Well, it's complicated.
It's complicated.
It took us 200 plus years to get here. It's not going to fix itself. We'll have you back.
Always.
And we'll take
Always
a look.
a pleasure. It's great to see you.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.